Do we have some people online? How many? I see fingers. It looks like less than 10, like 8. Cool. Hello, 8 people online. You're in for a treat, as are this is nice having everyone right over here. So I've seen the file. We're gonna have fun in the next few minutes. So I don't think Joel needs any introduction. So I'm gonna pass it over to him. And if ever you need any people to talk, I have the microphone and I will come to you, though it's really loud.
All right. Now am I on? Yeah. So just let me know if you can't hear me, and we'll adjust. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I got to say it a little bit in the service, but I've just been so warmly welcomed here. I've had such a good time getting to know your staff and the several members already, and I feel very at home here. I am a member of Third Reformed Church in Holland, Michigan, and I can't think of a church that feels more parallel to my church than your church does. So this just feels like being at home, just a little bit, furniture rearranged a little bit. So today, oh, hi, my name is Joel, and that's an artsy picture of me. Today I'm going to try and unpack a little bit the sort of why art in a church. What is art good for, in a way? And I know I'm in safe territory because this is a church that already embraces art. So I'm thankful to walk into a place where I don't have to make an argument so much as just sort of lay out some ways that I have seen it be helpful. And maybe I can give you a few new ways to think about it. So I want to start with an idea of really what I was talking to the kids about earlier, and it's really one of visual literacy. So I often say we read art, but it's really my sort of beginning thesis is we are visual people. We navigate the world through pictures. And when art is at its best, it's telling us something. It's communication. Art is communication. And the communication might be something as simple as, oh, that's a very lovely flower. It doesn't have to be some giant idea, but then it can also bring us to really deep places too. So I thought we'd do a little bit of warm-up. And so this will be some group participation, by the way. And we're going to read some art together. So I'll accept, I think, one image today will be paintings that I've done. So here's a painting that really is a story. And I think you've probably picked up on it by now, but just by introduction to my artwork, I often have realistic imagery, and kid-like imagery, or to use the fancy art word, I juxtapose kid-like imagery with realistic imagery. And by the way, if you ever want to sound like you know what you're doing at an art event, just throw the word juxtapose in. It's like, I really like the way the artist juxtaposes the thing with the what's it there, and people will think you know what you're talking about. So, but here's the question. So when I say read a painting, it might be as simple as you see a tree. So you read tree. Or you might read the bigger story and read into it. So I will invite you to tell me what you're reading in this picture. What do you see? Yes? Bearing Witness. Bearing Witness. Oh, very nice. Whew. You know, sometimes I have a hard time coming up with titles, and now I know who to come to. That's fantastic. Yeah, so we see 3 onlooking bears bearing witness. That's fantastic. Yes?
Yeah, well, I apparently am not anywhere near as sophisticated as Doug, because I thought this was the story of the 3 bears.
It is. So this is the story of the 3 bears. That's right. This is my interpretation of it. So in my interpretation of this story, what's the difference in the way I look at this story? Yeah, Goldilocks is being arrested. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, theft. The moral of the story is just because you're cute and blonde should not mean you're above the law. Okay, let's look at the next picture. What's the story here? The cow jumped over the moon. All right, it's Doug, is it? Right? Doug, well, if this was a motivational poster, what like you have on the ceiling of a dentist office, what motivational tagline should we put with this one? Anyone can actually answer that one. Just do it. I love that. You need help. You need help. Yeah, nice. You need help. Just do it. Try again. Nice. Yeah. If you aim for the moon, you might land in a tree. I'm just going to end right there. That's fantastic. So it's the story of the cow trying to jump over the moon. The subplot is, how did that one get in the tree in the first place, right? Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a painting that's actually a series of canvases. So this is about 9 feet by 9 feet. This was my art prize piece a few years ago, and it's numbers. I just wanted to show you the beginning of it. So now let's go to the next one. Within that, we've got the number 2. All right, so there's a lot of word play going on in this one. What are some word plays that you can see? Two cans. So I hear there's 2 cans. You get extra credit if you can tell me what kind of cans those are. They're Guinness, and then you get extra credit if you can tell me why I chose Guinness for this painting. Yeah, so if you look at 1940s, 1950s posters, like if you go to an Irish pub, you'll see a Guinness ad. They're balancing pints of Guinness on their on their bill for some reason. Next time you're in an Irish pub, you're gonna be like, oh, I remember that painting. So we got 2 cans. This one's saying 2 can play at that game. We've got 2 cans. We got the 2 spades. These are pairs, right? It's a pear tree. Anyway, I heard another one. Tutu? Yeah, they're wearing a tutu. And then this is where I really, and someone already noticed the 2 there. This is where I always am pushing my luck, but I've got a little bit of middle school boy in me. The bird's dropping a deuce. I apologize. It's so bad. I just did that in a church sanctuary. I'm seriously really sorry. Let's go on. Let's get to the Jesus stuff faster. Here we go. So here's my thought. If we live in a visual world, how can that be applied to church? Or how can art help disciple us? So my starting point, though, is if we read images, how can the reading of those images lead us places? So I'm just going to give some examples. So let's go to my first topic. So one way it can do it is just by helping us see things in new ways. Consider a story from a new perspective. And I'm going to show you a few of my paintings and unpack that just a little bit. So the next one. So here's a painting. Before I did this gospel project that I brought here, I had another project. It's called 40. The biblical story, and I did a Genesis to Revelation in 40 paintings. And so here's one of the stories from that. And can you see what the story is? It's Moses with the 10 Commandments, right? So, but here's the symbol that I shared with the kids this morning. It's the don't, right? So can anyone guess what the commandment is there? Yeah, no coveting. So don't covet your neighbor's donkey. But here's the thing. I don't want a donkey. I'm not interested in a donkey. I don't think my neighborhood is zoned for a donkey. And so I put the donkey in a little convertible, right? Because sometimes I covet my neighbor's cool car. Like I have, literally, as I look out my front porch, I have several neighbors who are all buying these really cool electric cars that it's like every time someone shows up with their electric car, it's like, I need it, and I covet it, right? So using, I hope that helps us think about that story in a different way, right? So we hear the commandments, and what do we mean by coveting, and how can we set it in a new light? Okay, let's go to the next one. One of my favorite passages to paint is the Peaceful Kingdom. And this interpretation of it has them doing like sort of a parade. Because in that passage it talks about, and the children will lead them. Little children will lead them. And so I got this image of my head of sort of like a parade in the backyard that little kids will do. And now I have painted this image in so many ways and styles, and you'll see a few more after this. But I've painted it like a lot of people have. The animals all lying around together looking happy, but quiet. But as I started thinking about it, and when I was doing this painting, I started thinking about the idea of peace as an active thing. So peace isn't just sitting quietly, although it can be, but can peace also be an active thing? And so that's why I wanted to do the parade. And so my hope is, as people think about that, they might just think about the passage a little bit differently. Let's look at the next one. This is a peaceful kingdom. This is a huge canvas set in a neighborhood. So as you look around, you can find the different elements of the peaceful kingdom. And you can't probably see this, but here we've got the block party, and then we've got a little communion table set up over there. But just wanted to think about, I like to take the stories when I can out of the desert, out of these sort of Middle Eastern settings that we may or may not always relate to, and set them in our own context, right? So what does it look like to have peace in your neighborhood and to be an agent of that? All right. No, that's just sort of scribbling. Yeah, yeah. All right, next one. And I'm going to very briefly touch on the Gospels just to set you up. But I'm just going to do a teaser because in a few weeks I'll be doing a full talk on the shows that you have here. But because we're talking about visual literacy, I'm going to give you some clues about how to look at these paintings. So as I approached painting the Gospels, I did 10 from each Gospel, although 2 I peeled off from each Gospel for Holy Week. But I wanted to find a visual reminder of each Gospel. So Matthew, my visual reminder, is ways to help you think about the Old Testament, because Matthew's main audience were Jewish people, and he's, if you've read the Gospel of Matthew, he's often quoting what we call the Old Testament. And so as you go through these paintings, you'll find someone reading a little scroll, and you'll see the reference. Most of the paintings, there was actually a reference, right, in the chapter. There's a couple where there wasn't a reference, and so I picked one that I thought juxtaposed nicely with the painting. So that's one thing that you can look for. And then when I can, I would find bonus ways to reference the Old Testament. So here's the Magi going. They're thinking about Jesus and coming. And the reference, there's an Old Testament reference in here. It's so tiny. Does anyone see anything in the corner before I point it out? You have any idea what's going on here? It's hard to see probably from that distance. Yeah, it's Moses in the basket. So, to the Jewish audience who are becoming Christians, Jesus is the new Moses, right? But instead of coming to free just the Israelis, the Jewish people, he's come to free the whole world. So I love it when I can tuck in a reference to the Old Testament. Yes? Yeah, in the Star of Bethlehem. Oh, the Ark of the Covenant. I didn't actually mean that, but I'm going to pretend that that's what I mean now. It does look like that, doesn't it? From now on, I'm going to claim that I did that on purpose. That's amazing. All right, let's go to the next one. So, in the Gospel of Mark, my visual motif is like a graphic novel. Because how do things happen in Mark? Immediately, right? It's like an action movie or a graphic novel. And so you'll see these sort of comic book-like references. And I try to pick things where there is action going on. Okay, next one. For Luke, my visual motif is hills and flat places. So, Luke is all about justice. And so it's bringing things down to the plains. So, for instance, in Luke, it's the Sermon on the Plains, not the Sermon on the Mount. And that's, I think, a pretty deliberate choice. And so I like the idea of all the things that Jesus does in my Luke paintings are down on the flat place. And let me unpack this painting, this Let the Children Come to Me painting a little bit. And by the way, I often, I always feel funny pointing out too much in my artwork, because I'd rather you discover it on your own, but for the purposes of our class, I will show you some of these things. So as I thought about Let the Children Come to Me, coming down to this flat place, I thought about who children were not valued in that society, right? And who were the people of power that were valued, at least culturally? So you've got a Pharisee with a temple up here. You've got the wealthy gated community on the hill. You've got the rich man. If you look really carefully, he's got a camel. He's trying to wrestle it through a giant needle, eye of a needle. But here's the one that I felt especially good about in this painting. If you look carefully at the disciples, does it look like anything to you? It's a gate. Yeah, it's a fence. You can see there's actually a hinge on his arm, and their shadows are like a fence. At this point in the story, Jesus is getting super popular. And who was keeping the little kids away? It was his disciples, right? So they're starting to say, no, hold on. We're liking this. We get to say who's in and who's out. And so it's super easy to call out the Pharisees and the rich people, but I think it's sometimes important to ask ourselves, like, yeah, who are we deciding is on the inside and who's not? So they're opening up and coming down. Yeah?
I think I may know, but what are the birdhouses about?
Yeah, so this is a mustard tree. And the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, right? It's this itty-bitty seed that grows up big enough for birds of all types to come there. So you'll find I love painting that little image, and that's in several of the paintings. All right, next one. So then the final gospel, of course, is John, and my motif there is light. So and you'll see, I love that Peter here, by the way, you have to give him credit. He's like, hey, let's hang those paintings in this pyramid, and we'll make them look like they're floating. I love that. I abandoned them the other day. I had to go to another thing, and I never got to see them all up until this morning. And I love that, but the light's coming down on it because Jesus in John it really is. I wanted to explore Christ's divinity in that one, and a lot of the references he makes, he talks a lot about being God's son, and he makes these big lofty speeches and things. And so I like to picture the heavenly lights, from above, and angelic music playing as you look at those paintings. This is in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We often hear that passage in Advent, and so I decided to do a little nativity and think about baby Jesus being in the beginning kind of idea. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So the first set was just ways to look at Scripture, look at ideas differently, from a different angle, and hopefully think things in a new and refreshing way. I also like it when I have a chance to push things more and really let the paintings be more and more of a conversation. So I did 4 large canvases for Western Theological Seminary in Holland, and each canvas has to do with sort of a pillar of what their mission is, what they want to be about there. And so I met with faculty and I talked to them, and we worked out what those 4 things are, and then we thought, what are the stories that we can weave through that? So in each painting, I've woven in the prodigal son and the story of Jonah. Both stories of grace, and that's what we wanted to have sort of weaving through this all. But what I like is when someone can make some connections and think about things differently by the connections they're making. So for instance, this painting was about spiritual discipline, all the things that you learn, those sort of core learning things. So you've got a Psalm 1 reference, you've got a prayer reference. These are all books, if you could actually read this, these are all books that are on sort of the reading list at the seminary. So all those things are going the ways that we learn. But then I thought, what are other ways that we learn, and how can I show them from those two stories, right? So here we have Jonah in the forced meditation time when he's in the belly of the fish. And here we have the prodigal learning while he's feeding pigs. So, my hope is that as these are in the sort of learning center, what we used to call a library. I don't know what they actually call it these days, but where students spend a lot of time and a lot of studying. And my hope is over the years at the seminary, a seminary student might contemplate these paintings. So I'll quickly show you the other one. So the next one is about ministry. So here, I like how we got Jonah's finally given in. He's doing his ministry. He's yelling at the Ninevites. Then the next one is the church. And I picked chairs from all over the world for that church. And you can see we got the whole Trinity here. We got Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And that's the church. The connection that I hope people contemplate from this one is when Jonah's gotten super grumpy because the Ninevites have repented, and he's not happy about it, right? So when are we as the church, again, it's sort of like the gatekeeper one, it's like when are we as the church, are we not happy about maybe who's joining us? So the kind of connection that I hope would happen. And one more, and then this is worship. All right, let's go to the next slide. So another thing that art can help us do as people and as believers is help us access difficult topics. So I'll use a term here in all humility that I think art, when it's being really effective in this way, can be prophetic. And what I mean by prophetic is I mean truth-telling. So I use the word prophetic as truth-telling. So art can allow us to say truths about a thing and help us engage with that topic in ways that maybe just having the conversation is more difficult to do, right? Remember when we used to have civil discourse? I vaguely remember it, right? I vaguely remember it. But what has been really interesting to me is I've done more and more what I guess you would call activist art in the last number of years, and it really has been an interesting way to step into an issue with folks, because somehow by using the art as your focus of the conversation, it depersonalizes it in some way, and I've just found that I've had really fertile conversations by doing that. So let me just share some... Yeah, art gives room for civil discourse is what it... There's no, sorry, say that one more time. Yeah, there's no distance. Is that what you said? Yeah. With art, huh? It's like, point, line, play, space, and there's no distance anymore. It's beyond that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We'll see how I go from there. So environment is a huge topic of mine. Creation care, as we would say in the church. And this is a painting I did with kids. It's a collage. And can you see what the reef is made out of? Can anyone tell? Plastic. It's all plastic. So this is all plastic that I then painted back into. So, but if you look really carefully, It's just wrappers and wrappers, and the easiest one to see maybe is this Subway bag. This gives me an opportunity. I love talking to kids about this one and remind them that you don't actually need to have that sandwich put in a bag to then walk to your seat and pull it out of the bag to eat. You actually don't need it if you take it away either. So, because it often ends up where it doesn't belong. So, it gives you a good way to talk about, consider the plastic that we use in our lives. All right, next one. I'm currently working, I'm sharing some brand new paintings with you. I'm currently working on a project about threats to biodiversity, and that I'm really excited about. I've been meeting with Grand Valley State University with their environmental ed people too, so that we're going to create curriculum that goes with the show, so that when you see a painting, you can engage with it more with a QR code and think about the topic more. So this painting is called A Day in the Life of Poached Elephants. Get ready for the saddest thing you're going to hear today. That's how many elephants will be murdered today for their tusks, and tomorrow, and the next day, on average. So I'm doing different paintings to examine the different threats as a way to engage in this topic. So let's look at the next one. This is the most complicated painting I've ever made. A polar bear in a snowstorm. Yeah, yeah, it is. This is called A Polar Bear in a Snowstorm, 1975. Okay, so now let's look at the next one. This is called A Polar Bear in a Snowstorm, 2025. So there's a little Coke bottle back there, right? Because they drink Coca-Cola. That's what the advertisements tell me. But you know, so it's a climate change commentary, so we can have that discussion. All right, next painting. So now we're really getting into that activist stuff. This is not my painting, but that's me standing in front of a Banksy painting. Do you guys know who Banksy is? This is in right outside of Bethlehem, in Beit Sahur, which is Shepherd's Field. And I have gone I guess 3 times now. I've led an art camp at one of the Christian high schools in Shepherd's Field, or in Beit Sahur. And this is right around the corner from the high school where we were, or the school where we were doing our art camp. So let me show you the next one.
The guy throwing
He's throwing flowers instead of rocks. Yeah. This is my contribution to the wall in Bethlehem. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a wall that looks like a maximum security prison that goes around the West Bank. And this is one of the areas where I've had healthy conversations with people by talking about the art. So first of all, you show people a painting on the wall, and I've got other paintings that show you the guard towers and the barbed wire, and a lot of people don't even know the wall's there. And then we can start talking about, like, what are the circumstances that caused that wall to be built, and what are all the things going on there. And so this is a painting called Balancing the Peaceful Kingdom. And so it's all the animals from the peaceful kingdom trying to get up really over the wall, right? This has been a really interesting painting for me because of how much engagement I've had with folks. And my friends in Bethlehem helped me find the spot. And the etiquette of this is you talk to the business owners nearby. And you can just go paint on the wall, but the etiquette is you make sure they're okay with it. And so they found me this spot to paint. I had no idea what high traffic it was. About a year after I painted this, Banksy actually built his walled-off hotel like a half a block away. So this has gotten crazy traffic. I ended up in a National Geographic travel magazine of art in the West Bank. And Conan O'Brien, who he did this series of episodes where he went to different parts of the world. So he went to Israel and Palestine, and he literally stood in front of my painting for like a 5-minute segment. It's like, at first I'm like, I think that's my painting. And then they zoom out, and it was. It's like, wow. Anyway, but it's been a really great, for all those reasons and more. It's amazing how often I'll get a photo from somebody that has stumbled across this, and they pose with it. But it gives me a chance to talk about peace in the Middle East or lack thereof. All right, next one. It does feel like it does. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Was the script about the lamb, did you paint
No, someone else did. That was graffiti. Yeah, it was graffiti that someone else did. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Someone else did the others, yeah. So if you go to the wall, there's just paintings all along. I did another painting that has since been painted over, but that one's survived other than the cow at the bottom has a little bit of writing on it that I've seen from friends that have been there recently. But I decided to do the same image. I liked it so much, I did it at our southern border. Think about that. All right, next one. And then I've got another image I like to do a lot is the Good Samaritan. And this is a print that I made called the Good Syrian. And I made this, it was in 2017. And there was some language going on in our country about people from Syria and other places like that, and there were all kinds of refugee issues. And so I decided to release this print to raise money for refugees, which no one would have known about except it got flagged. So this is just a little side story for you. A place called Icons released it for me. They do church art sorts of things. And an hour after they released this, their website was frozen because in the URL code it had the word Syrian. And it took them about 3 days to get their website unfrozen. In the course of it, we're still not sure if it was PayPal, who is the financial service, citing Homeland Security, or Homeland Security using PayPal as their agent. But along the way, we were told that I was blackballed, which was pretty awesome, right? It's like, I got blackballed by Homeland Security. But anyway, by the time all was said and done, the people of Icons finally got to someone high enough on the food chain to say, go look at that website. Come, please just look at the website. And most of it's just like lovely calligraphy for church bulletins. And they're like, oh, okay, we see. But as a result, I ended up getting on the news and radio and TV, and we raised a ton of money that I don't think ever would have been raised if we hadn't been flagged, because it became an interesting story. Yes?
Was it intentional, or were you channeling Van Gogh?
Oh, it's absolutely intentional. So this is a total ripoff of Van Gogh, who actually ripped off a French artist. And this, if you look carefully, this Syrian is helping a guy. He's got a Confederate flag tattoo. So it's like, who's my neighbor? Right now, how's this all working? So there we go. I spent too long on that story, but it's such a weird, interesting story. I had to do it. Okay, next one. So here again, I took the Van Gogh again and decided to do a border. Our church has a Spanish language service, and a high percentage of our members of that service are political refugees. And we, a lot of us have taken turns going down to the border and learning more about that. And we have a sister church right across the border in Juarez from El Paso. So this is a thing that we think about a lot at our church. Okay, next. Okay, how are we doing on our time, by the way?
I left my phone over there.
Oh, we're almost out. Okay, so quickly, art can give us illustrate concepts. That's what we've been hopefully showing. It can help us just think differently about things. Another reason we might bring art into church is because a live encounter might anchor an idea. So I don't know if this will anchor the idea, but when I finish this painting and bring it back, my hope would be that as you see this painting in the future around your church, you'll remember Lynette's sermon that much more because it gives you this anchor, or I like to call it a coat hook for ideas. So I think a live experience like that, an image in church being done in that way, can give you a coat hook to hang the idea on. So that's at least my premise. And then the final one that I do like to do, and we're going to do in a setting like this in a couple of weeks, is the community building that can happen when we create things together. And I have a whole talk that I can do on how we are all creative people. That's part of being made in God's image. In fact, at the end of Genesis 1, all we know is about God's image pretty much is that God's creative. So we are inherently creative people. And so it's really good when we get together and do creative things. So let me just show you very quickly a few of those sort of things. So it's, this is where we're heading. I was an artist in residence at First Presbyterian Flint a number of years ago. And this is one of the paintings I did where the scripture that week was Noah's Ark and Christ's baptism. And what I love about both is there's a dove in both of those stories. But that was a painting that I started like this during the service. Let's look at the next one. This was also for that church where they were baptizing children, and it was like an All Saints Day, and there were all these things going on. We were tying those things together. Let's look at the next one. This was a situation where during communion, people came up and made a mark one week, and then I took it away and turned it into this Revelation image during the week. Let's go to the next one. This is one where we were thinking in the service about community, and I painted a circle in one corner and a circle in another and asked whether that felt like community, and it did not to people. And I just asked people to, again, during a part of the service, people came up and added a circle, and slowly the circles overlapped and intermingled, and I tweaked it a little bit, but I ended up doing very little to, and it was really remarkable just to watch what a congregation, because people get nervous. You tell them you're going to paint, you're going to all paint now, right? But most people can do a circle, right? And this, or get in close proximity to it. So, but this ended up just being a painting for them to think about community. All right, do I have anything else? Oh yeah, here's I did these paintings with a high school group for a church where we did several paintings along the Joseph narrative. And here's what I like about these collaborative things personally is the way other people bring the ideas into it. So it's not just me dictating. So the kids were acting it out for reference material, and they were like, well, how about we be the pit, right? And so that they formed the pit that they threw Joseph in after they stripped him, before they sold him. And I just thought that was such an interesting image. And then we asked questions of the congregation for several weeks, and the congregation would write answers, and we collaged those answers into the paintings. Is there maybe one more? Oh, my shameless plug. If you're Instagram people, Joel Schoon-Tanis art, I just post art on it. Occasionally I'll post art or creative things that are inspiring me. I do not post what I'm having for dinner or personal. It really is just an art site. And it gives you a chance to know what I'm up to. You don't need Joel Schoon-Tanis Gallery necessarily because you've got it. You've got it here. And maybe there's one more that just says questions or something like that. Yeah. See, we talked and talked, so it's quarter after, so I want to respect people's time, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Or a couple questions? What's our...
People can leave if you need to. Cool, am I on? No. Great. You can leave as you need to, but yeah, we can take a few minutes for a couple questions. And our collaborative piece in 2 more Sundays is going to be a set of banners to hang in here for Easter Sunday and the season of Easter. And so you all have the opportunity to come and help put those in. And Joel's going to set us up to add in nature images of resurrection. So we're in the wilderness, but Easter's coming. So if you have a question, I'll
Does
bring
anyone have
this.
one dying question that we can end with?
Colors and
Yeah, the colors being that come out of tubes, and sometimes I'll mix them a little bit on, on my, in my palette, but.
Yeah, even nature, you can make it through nature. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
cool. Anyone else have a question before we go? It doesn't.
I could probably find your bio somewhere, but
Yeah.
where did you go to art school?
Oh, so I'm a proud graduate of Hope College. Yes. My dad was a Hope College professor, not in art. He was in math. He was in probability and statistics. But yeah, I went to Hope. There's some really good art schools out there, and they're the right thing for a lot of people. For me, it's more about the thinking. The technical skills sort of come from practice, but I really love a liberal arts setting because it gives you things to think about. Helps you think. Well, thank you all so much. I'm really looking forward to being with you here.